något annat, nämligen himmelriket. Och nu ställer jag frågan till dig, Sonja. Tror du på ett liv efter döden?
Jag har funderat på det här väldigt länge och jag tänkte nu berätta några minuter.
Vi har inte tid tyvärr.
Ja, just det. Så vi måste gå vidare. Jag vet inte, det här är en jättesvår fråga.
Ja, nej.
Och, tror jag på himmelriket?
Inte himmelriket, men ett liv efter döden.
Jag tror på någonting efter döden.
Vi frågar nämligen er också tittare, vad sa du, någonting? Vi frågar också er, det var dagens fråga. Tror du på ett liv efter döden? Och det här är vad ni har svarat. 34% säger att ja, våra liv fortsätter i någon annan form.
Så 34% tror också på någonting efter döden.
Men rent av 26% säger att det finns ett himmelrike. Och en tredjedel säger att nej, när vi är döda så då är vi döda. Och sen finns det de som inte vet vad de ska tro. Så att där har vi det resultatet.
Ja, och den här frågan är väldigt förknippad till vår följande gäst.
Ja, och jag kan ju direkt säga att jag är själv en grym skeptiker. Jag tror inte just nu i talande stund på någonting efter döden. Och det gjorde inte heller vår följande gäst, amerikanska neurokirurgen Dr. Eben Alexander, som alltså själv var en skeptiker förrän han hade en nära döden upplevelse. Och där han nu alltså påstår i sin bok som heter Proof of Heaven att han besökte himmelriket när han låg i koma i 7 dagar. Och är nu fullständigt övertygad om att det finns någonting efter döden. Och han menar att man också i framtiden, om inte nu än, kan vetenskapligt bevisa att det här faktiskt existerar.
Är den här boken en av de mest sålda i USA? Typ,
ja, för tillfället den mest sålda faktaboken i USA. Så att, så nu ska vi få träffa Eben Alexander. Det här är hans berättelse. Dr. Eben Alexander, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
In your book, Proof of Heaven, which has also now been translated into Finnish, you describe in detail how you fell ill, you went into a coma and had a near-death experience, and that you saw a glimpse of heaven, or the life beyond our lives. And that you therefore, after having been a skeptic for most of your life, you suddenly were convinced that heaven exists.
Yes.
But before we go into that in more detail, just briefly tell us what happened to you.
Well, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning back in November 2008, severe back pain, severe headache. Within a few hours, I had a grand mal seizure and was driven deep into coma. I don't remember anything of the next 7 days from this world. And it turns out I was taken to the hospital, had a very severe, very rare case of bacterial meningitis. And just going into coma within a few hours with that diagnosis, you're already down to a 10% survival or less. And it only got worse during the week. I did not respond to 3 powerful antibiotics. And on the 7th day, when my doctor said I was down to a 2% survival and no real chance of recovery, they recommended stopping the antibiotics because I was not showing any sign of residual brain function in the neocortex, the part of our brain that makes us human. And that's when I started coming back. And what I remembered was this extraordinary journey deep in coma. If you would asked me before coma, how much would such a patient that sick with meningitis, how much would they experience or remember, I would have told you nothing. And that's why having this very rich journey that seemed to last for months or years was inexplicable when I first came back.
But you were never really pronounced dead. You were just hanging by a thread.
Right. As most doctors who take care of bacterial meningitis will tell you, by day 3 in such an illness, patients are either starting to wake up or they're dead. My doctors were faced with the fact I was still there, not yet dead, but I was very close to being evaluated for brain death criteria. But that's when I started to come back. And when I did, I just remembered this extraordinary journey that I'd had deep in coma. In fact, the meningitis was so severe, it had wiped out all of my knowing of my humanity from before coma. All words, language, all my memories of my life, any kind of religious ideas, all that stuff was destroyed by this severe bacterial meningitis. And all I knew when I came back was this beautiful odyssey I had been on.
Tell us about it.
Well, the initial phase was what I call the earthworm's eye view. Very primitive, coarse, kind of foamy, muddy darkness, unresponsive realm. But I was rescued from that by this beautiful spinning white light that had a lovely musical melody, and it opened up into an ultra-real valley, lush with life, valley filled with butterflies and flowers and buds on trees blossoming even as we flew by. There was a beautiful girl beside me on the butterfly wing who showed me this incredible unconditional love, assured me I'd be taken care of, that I had nothing to fear, that I was deeply loved forever. And then completely out of that realm, through these angelic choirs and up into higher and higher dimensional space outside of all of our space and time, into the core, infinite inky blackness, but filled to overflowing with the love of that creative power of that God, and a brilliant light from this orb that was there with us as a translator or interpreter.
And this was, you're convinced that this was heaven, or the life beyond?
It was an absolutely idyllic and beautiful vision that was very heavenly. The important thing to understand, it was much more real than this world, much more perfect and ideal and beautiful and overwhelming, and tremendous information passed instantly and completely. And when I came back, I realized, well, how in the world did that happen? My doctors told me your brain was way too sick. Your whole neocortex was being destroyed by this infection. They had no idea how I'd come back. And they assured me there was no way my brain could have done anything like that. So all of my memories of neuroscience and brain-mind consciousness were gone when I first came back. They took up to 6 weeks to return. During that time, I was busy writing down the whole experience. And I thought, well, it's got to tell us something about consciousness. If brain science would say there's no way this happened in my brain because of the severe meningitis. So I looked for ways to explain it, as a skeptical brain scientist, as something that happened in my brain. But over months of analysis, working with my colleagues, going through my medical records, my scans, my neuro exams, all my medications, trying to explain it, we finally determined that, yes, it was too real to be real because it really occurred. But it did not occur in my brain, did not occur in the physical universe. And it tells us a lot more about who we are, how our consciousness, our awareness, our soul or spirit is actually enriched to a much higher level when freed up from the brain and body, such as when our physical body dies. And that is a crucial part of understanding my journey, and that's why I go into such depth trying to explain that in the book, is from a neuroscience standpoint, talking about consciousness, quantum mechanics, the nature of existence, of reality. This shows very strongly that our soul or spirit is eternal.
I'm still very interested in knowing, because I'll be honest, I'm very skeptical myself. I've never believed in God my whole life. I'm not religious, and it fascinates me that that you have experienced this, and your sort of your opinion has changed,
right,
if it has.
Yes, it's changed completely.
And what I'd really like to know is because I read somewhere that it says that by this book, you say that science can and will determine that heaven really does exist. How will science prove?
I think what this tells us is that consciousness is a far deeper mystery. In fact, that consciousness, soul, spirit, and I would say that at deeper levels, all of our consciousness is one. It's not just about humans. It's not just about life on Earth. It's far bigger than that. And that science and spirituality actually strengthen each other. I see this as coming together of science, spirituality, and it's mainly because the hard problem of consciousness and the enigma of quantum mechanics are completely insoluble from a purely scientific materialist viewpoint. By greatly expanding the definition of science and how it accepts and understands the profound mystery of consciousness and of the non-physical. I think that is the big message, what's coming on now. And in fact, to me, all this makes a lot more sense when I look over 3,000 years of human history and destiny and see the 20th century and the successes and the failures of scientific materialism and of technology they were going in a direction, but it actually makes more sense when you combine science and spirituality, come to realize that the boundaries we see between science, spirituality, or between spirituality and religion, and the boundaries between the various religions are all false, man-made boundaries. They're often very dysfunctional, misleading, they're confusing. And it's actually by bringing all of this thinking together over these thousands of years that it starts to make much more sense. But not to be fooled by the pure scientific materialism of the 20th century that said if you understand everything about subatomic particles, atoms, molecules, cells of the brain, that you can explain everything. Because in fact, that science has nothing to tell you about how consciousness might arise out of the brain. That's the important message.
Lastly, so what happens now? Have you stopped practicing medicine, and you're going to continue this journey now to?
Well, this is my journey, and this is all about, I'll continue to work with patients in the future, but mainly patients in hospice, ICU, families facing the loss of a loved one. I'm working with medical schools and nursing schools to try and help change curricula, build this knowledge of near-death experiences and what it tells us about eternity of our soul and spirit. Build that more into the fabric of our medical education. I have a lot of invitations to talk to medical groups, nursing groups. So it really is about changing our kind of modern medical physics and scientific thinking and taking it to the next level.
Proof of Heaven is the name of the book. Thank you very much, Dr. Evan Alexander.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Utan vidare